Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our October SIB meeting. And this meeting is extra special. And the reason behind that is the last meeting in 2025. And that's why we have a new item for our agenda, this meeting for 2025 wrap up. So as normal, we have our normal items, staff updates, support updates, and chair updates. And for the discussion items, we have two main items. Hopefully we can wrap up the micro grants this meeting, and we can stop by our 2025, see what we learned, how we can move forward. Do we need to stick to our scope for waste and water? So we can discuss all these items. Listen, I can start. I know Liz, she is on the leave, so
yeah. So just me here this meeting.
Okay.
One update, we're going to be switching the hybrid model to Microsoft Teams, so no longer on Zoom. We've been paying for the Zoom account from some air quality funds, and we're just going to go ahead and use the Teams that the city uses otherwise.
So no more Zoom for us.
Right, so it'll just be Teams.
Is it good?
Still free access, but
I'll just try it.
I hate Teams. I hate Teams. But okay.
And then wanted to highlight that we've got weatherization kits that the city allocated some funds for. So I'm going to be taking these to the neighborhood resource centers and having them distribute the rest of them. Gave out a few at open streets and at our workshops that we did this month. But I think I've still got around 150 left, so I'll take about 50 to each of the NRCs. And then, if you know anybody that could be in need, might want one, direct them there. I'll have them there by the end of this week.
Okay.
And they're free, one per household. I don't think you need more than one per apartment / house. Yes, and I believe that is all I've got for staff updates today.
Thanks. So let's move on to the board updates. So start with Ben. Do you have any updates, Ben?
So from transit, so they routes 21 and 22, that's like the kind of goes by WSU, goes in the Z pattern. It is the most productive route in the entire city. It has the highest ridership, and so it will stay on 30-minute frequencies this fall, whereas the other routes tend to be on 40 minutes or higher frequencies. They have a few vacancies, van drivers. You don't necessarily need a full CDL to be a van driver. And the director Feist had to have an update about like federal shutdown, and the current long-term impacts could involve delayed FY 2026 FTA funding, but FY 25 funding, federal funds have already been drawn down. They're expected to remain on schedule. So it's basically just like things will be postponed. Is the anticipation. And if you notice, Sycamore is currently closed. Sycamore is closed because they're Evergy's doing utility work, and they're bringing electric power to the new hub site. And that's between the 13th and the 24th of October. And so then they'll have electricity at the site. If you look, they've a lot of infrastructure has gone in. And so it should be visible improvements throughout the winter. That's all I got.
Yeah, thanks for the update.
What's the date? When will be up and running?
2026, I think. Don't quote me on that. But
Another year. They've been working on it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna just sit there.
yeah, next year is supposed to be a very active year for transit, because you got the hub's going to open, be finished open, and then they're going to implement the replan of the routes based upon last year's studies that they did, traffic studies and all of that. So yeah, it'll be exciting.
There was like a system.
Correct. Yeah. So they have a lot of disparate systems. One's for paratransit, one's for regular transit, and then all sorts of like scheduling. So they're all different systems, and they're trying to have one system for everything. And so that's also happening in 2026.
And is that going to be consumer facing?
No, all of that will be back end. But hopefully it will make it more resilient because we've had occasional pickups in the past couple years. Hopefully not our names on websites.
Oh, yes.
It'll probably be AWS. Let's be real.
Probably will.
I know we are missing few board members, Cynthia and Russell and others.
We do have Jessica,
Oh, Jessica, yeah.
but I don't know if there's communication.
They're probably not
Or-
meeting,
but
yeah.
Jessica, I don't know if you want to share any update you might have, but I guess you probably wouldn't have one.
No update, but as was mentioned in the last meetings, yeah, I thought I was not on this board, so I am grateful to be here today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Welcome.
Grateful to have you.
Okay, it's getting fast, so moving on. So my update for this month is maybe like another learning opportunity. So I'm going to share my screen.
Lori's favorite topic.
Very nice topic, right?
Mm.
Get her free.
Yeah, so I was trying to share with you like some, information you may have it. It's mainly about the water consumption behind the AI and the data centers. So as we all know, the data centers in general, they have like servers, right? And for the servers, you need to be running under a certain temperature. And to do that, you have to make cooling for the servers, right? And you can do cooling using water, right? Which is the main heating thing to take this heat out from the servers. But in the meantime, to run the data centers, you need electricity, right? Which is coming from the power plants. And in the power plants, you need to have cooling towers, right? And in the cooling towers, you have to get water, right? So this water start to take the heat out. And unfortunately, you are losing water by evaporation, right? And also you are losing water by evaporation from the data centers. So we have two different sources of water losses, right? One through the cooling in the data centers for cooling the servers, and the other one indirect way by having the water losses from the power grids from the cooling tower. So let me start this by mapping where we are for the data centers. So in the United States, we have more than 5,400 of the data centers as of 2025. The majority of them, more than 300 of them, they are concentrated in north of Virginia. So, and there is like a one county is called like Loudoun County. This is like around 35 miles west of Washington, D.C., as you can see over here. So you can see this map, you can see different colors, right? Between the red one and between the yellow one and in between. So this is like a different level of power in terms of megawatt. So the big data centers, they have more than 3,500 megawatt, and the small one less than 500 or 1,000, and in between. And as you can see, as I mentioned before, this area in particular in north of Virginia, they got like the capital of data centers. They have like a huge concentration of data centers, and given that, you can imagine how much water they needed for cooling the servers. So, so Virginia in general, they consumed around 2 billion gallons of water in 2023. Which is like with an increase of 63 from 2019. And you can imagine now in 2025, what is the new number? And 5 years from now, it will be like something, needs some attention. So let's put these numbers in perspectives. So the water consumption impact. So the average medium-sized data centers, they are consuming around 110 million gallons per year, which is the water needed for 1,000 households. And the large ones, the huge one, can consume and drink up to 5 million gallons per day of the water, which is 1.8 billion gallons per year. And the numbers are scary numbers, right? So need some attention and need some innovations and saving, But I do expect like more innovation happening for the AI, especially like all the new business right now, they're coming more to the AI and data centers. And to do that, there's some innovations and some savings. We will try to make sure, yes, we can open to the AI and data centers, but this keeps the water, under light. And there are like few strategies. One of the strategies to have like closed loop of cooling. meaning that you start to recycle your water. You have to conserve your water. This can and the majority of the water is lost by evaporation, right? So if you can recondense it and use it back, this might be a good solution. And another approach to immerse your servers inside the dielectric liquid. So in this case, you start to have efficient water utilization. The other way to move away from the water and use air. But the main challenge for using air for cooling is the heat capacity of the water is 29 the heat capacity of the air. So the higher heat capacity means that you have higher potential to take heat out from the servers. And the other point, which I feel might be good, is if you see this one I mentioned before, electricity coming from the data center from the electrical grid, right? If we can rely mainly on the renewable energy, the solar energy, the wind energy, so in this case, I don't need cooling towers, so I will not need water for cooling, right? But there is like, if you see the news right now, there's like a good business right now for the grid batteries. So people start to store electricity when the price is very low or negative and sell it back when we have high demand, you know? So this synergy between this concept of the grid batteries and data center might help, you know? As they say, oh, we cannot rely on the grid centers, sorry, on the solar energy or wind energy fluctuations, but we can store the energy in the grid batteries and feed it back to the data center. So just, you know, learning opportunity here. Any questions for this particular topic?
The problem that we have here in Kansas is that the 20% increase that we got in our rates from Evergy is going to power these. We are powering them ahead of the build. We are paying for it now. And we're going to be paying for it for years. And they're building these offsite power plants, as you have, with our money. And we are not going to benefit from it other than peripherally. So this is why I groaned when I saw you put this up. This is not good for this state. It's not good for the people. It's not good for the power consumption and the water consumption.
Too.
Both are very, very intense with these data centers. And yeah, I can't see what our future is going to bring. How much more are they going to be able to raise our rates? Because of the expansion. They've already got expansion in mind. That's why they raised our rates.
Did they, okay, the data center that was by Hutch and I think one in Wellington?
Well, those
Evergy's-
are natural gas methane power plants.
Okay,
Those, yes,
all right.
those have passed, and that's what we're paying for now too.
We're paying for
That's
those
part of what
too.
we're paying for right now.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Surge capacity.
and they're
basically.
also trying to put in nuclear.
Yeah, I heard that
They're
on
trying to
TV.
build more nuclear
In Missouri or where?
now.
Yeah, I
Well,
heard that on
Here in
TV.
Kansas, yeah.
here in Kansas, natrium is what they call it. I think that's
I mean, these are just proposed plans.
Yeah.
They haven't started digging or anything, and I don't know
Oh.
what kind of approval process they require from the state.
Mhm.
I assume there's gonna be some, process, though, maybe they've got support in the legislature to, rush this stuff through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was pretty recent, starting about like maybe a month ago, maybe less. Started hearing people chatter about, oh, you got some proposals for a new nuclear power plant or a new type of nuclear power plant here in Kansas, and it's all connected to powering data centers.
Right.
That's,
I
I
agree.
mean,
I
all
agree.
of this stuff is
Mhm.
connected to
I
that.
agree.
well, and it says initially they have to get a license from the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Does that even exist?
I mean,
Yeah.
to my knowledge, that hasn't been something that Trump has gotten rid of.
They got rid of all the people who are keeping an eye on the nuclear weapons. So
Hmm.
maybe this is they've gotten rid of all of them.
It is an
So who
independent
cares what happens
agency,
to them now?
so maybe it's still functioning.
I hope so, but if not, that could be a delay since the government's shut down now.
A friend of mine works for the DOE and she's fully funded because she's independent, so.
The Department of Energy also has a slightly different fiscal cycle. That's what our fellow from the DOE was telling me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. My friend is the librarian at McCall Air Force Base and she's been furloughed.
Yeah, my point from my presentation today, like, there is like a stress on the electricity and the stress on the water consumption, you know? And this has to be, it will be grow up in the upcoming years. That's why saving innovations, you know, good planning for the cities could be like a key. Like as a board here, we have to highlight that, right?
Right.
And hopefully Issa can convey that to the, when you have
Do the data
updates.
centers typically use potable water, or do they pull in like lake water?
So for the cooling towers, for example, and for the cooling in general, you have to make sure you have certain water quality. If you don't meet it, you start to form scaling and fouling. You know, so you have something called like hardness of the calcium and the magnesium, you know. So you have to meet a minimum requirements to take this hardness ion out of water. So it's not like a untreated water, it has to be treated water, you know, otherwise you start to build scales on the heat transfer surfaces. So the good option to use air, but as I mentioned, the air is not sufficient to take heat like the water. So the water has higher heat capacity. The good heat sink, right, to take this heat out. Hopefully, you know, but a lot of people that they raise a lot of red flags about the water stress and the water consumption behind data centers. And since we are advisory board, so I try to have this one of the items in our agenda and discuss it today.
Are they able to recycle this water or once it's
Yes,
used, it's
you
done?
can recycle, but it's expensive, you know, but yeah, you can recycle.
Well, too bad,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of like fracking wastewater. It can be recycled, but it's expensive, so they
Everything
don't
is
do it.
recycled, yes, everything is
So
recycled.
they shoot into the
Everything
ground
is
instead to
recycled,
cause
yes.
earthquakes,
Yeah.
and they don't care.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
I'm saying, yeah.
Okay, move on. I will stop sharing now. So thanks, Ethan, for sharing with us the meeting minutes from September. Did you guys review it? Do you have any comments, inputs, any recommendations between it or something like that? No comment. Okay, any motions?
Good to me. Ben Langley, I move to approve the September 2025
Thanks,
Sustainable Integration Board meetings.
I second.
Thanks, Russell. So for those in approving the meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against that move? Going once, twice, 3 times. So we are going to approve the meeting minutes for September. So this meeting, we have 2 discussion items. Number 1 is micro grants. So hopefully we can wrap it up today for end of the year, and we can have a good move.
Yes, I asked for this item to be on here because we have a draft application that I wanted you all to be able to take a look at before the end of the year so that you could see what it would look like for applicants. Okay. So this is roughly what it's gonna look like. It's gonna be through Submittable, which is what the Arts and Culture Division uses as well. For their grants that actually I think just got approved at City Council last meeting. That was the last new business item, I think.
Oh, God.
So they were there late at
It was
night.
like a 10-hour meeting.
Yeah, so this is page 1, asking for information about the organization. I think I'll
Organization
contact.
name,
Um,
it has
and we've
address
got
and phone
contact
number.
name. Good note, because I don't see a slot for organization name.
That
We
might-
do have contact name, but I can go ahead and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Why do we need to have employer identification number?
I think it's for internal, well, this is a carryover from the arts organization grant, so I'm not sure if it's something that we need or not.
If it's,
I'll confirm.
if it's not something that we very specifically need,
Yeah.
then let's please take it out, because
Yeah.
that's the sort of thing that will make you know, small time appliers look at this and say, I don't have one, or
Right.
it would be hard to figure that
I
out.
agree.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
I
it's-
agree. Let's make it simple as much as we can.
Well, and in the, like.
I mean,
page-
I would assume that like you would see that on some grants because like it's federal money and so they have to show like for tax purposes that this is, you know, an actual employer that has, you know, been registered with the IRS or whatever. But when we're dealing with this money, I would like to hope that we wouldn't have to require people to come
Yeah.
up with that.
Yeah, that's
Those are good points,
Crazy.
yeah.
Like we do have in the like directions ahead of time, it says if something doesn't apply to your organization, right, not applicable. So if we have to have that, but we have an individual apply, they can hopefully figure out they can write NA for that.
Yeah, I can make a note next to that one specifically if you think it will throw people off.
if you think that it has to be,
I'll confirm.
if
It
we
needs to
don't,
be
then
there or
we
not.
need to just go ahead and move it.
And then asking for just the bottom half of this page, so not very long, but describing what your organization does or provide a personal statement of purpose. Just a short pitch.
I'll put on this in the closet.
Yeah, a little bit more about the applicant. And then a longer piece, the proposal narrative. I based this opening paragraph off of something that Arts had used, just kind of tried to change it for SIB, but yeah, feel free to take a second to read this and let me know any thoughts y'all have.
I think it's good that it calls out our focus areas and the types of examples of things, just to give some context to individuals.
It's good to me.
Everybody get a chance. So this will be a large part of it, and then the last piece, I think, is just the proposed budget. I left it fairly short because it can kind of be dependent upon their project, how much they can really break down that cost, but if they just want to insert a table or chart as well, with this short written explanation, that's probably ideal.
I mean, for $1,000, not looking like this isn't gonna be like a huge
Yeah.
complex budget.
Itemized
Right.
list of, yeah, each pencil, yeah.
Well, looks good, yeah.
And then, yeah, below is just some terms and conditions about.
So what are all the terms and conditions we got listed there? We've got,
Timing.
I mean, or,
Oh, gotta change the cultural funding committee.
oh,
to SIB.
Does it say someplace? I mean, it just says they need to submit a report.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because did we decide they weren't gonna come and
Present.
tell us?
I thought
Yeah,
it said in
they
the, like,
decided to-
I thought we were.
yeah, I think it says,
Something
in-
else to present what she did, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we
Where is
agreed
it?
on that.
I think it might be towards in the guidelines section.
yeah,
Ben,
it's
is
in the
that-
guidelines section.
Should we add a new term here about presenting the outcomes? The learning?
This is more.
Yeah. No.
Requirements of the app, like the ones that are selected, I don't know that you'll need everyone to present, right? It's just gonna be the ones that you advance to the second stage, is that?
Oh, that would be the contract award winners,
Yeah, just the award
the
winners.
people
would
that
be
get
presented.
the funds,
Correct.
is
And
what
that's-
we were
that's-
thinking.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
10 people. Every.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you want that like throughout the year then following the award, like after they've. Sorry, remind me, is this before they're selected or after they're selected? After selection,
After.
you want them to come present to the
Yeah,
board.
and after their project
After
is.
their project is complete,
complete,
so they
and
can
they've
tell us what
expended
they
all the money.
did, show
Yeah.
us pictures, that kind of
Go
stuff.
ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay, I can
Right.
add something like that in the
Like-
final report section then.
I mean, it could
How
either
many,
be.
how many reports, how many of these are we planning on giving out?
10.
10 awards.
probably 10, yeah.
So would we just want to say, should we put a time limit on that, like 5 minute or 2.5 minute update? So we're not,
Oh, so they don't
You know
like
what I mean?
prepare it an hour?
yeah,
That's fair. We could say 5 to 10 minute presentation to the SIB plus a written report,
yeah,
unspecified length.
It's good. Like 5 and 5, like 5 presentations, 5 Q&A.
Sure.
yeah.
We can give city communications a little more, things to videotape and interview people about. And come to a meeting.
Yeah. We could invite the media when they come,
Ooh.
so they
The
could, well, I
media's
mean,
always welcome.
that would be a great little feature to put on the end of the news. Day after day after day.
They get their money up front rather than they have to prove their expenses.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I forget
think so.
exactly the process, let's say,
There's
but
nothing
I
agreed
think it
on.
was we just have to confirm receipt. And they can still,
They do things differently. Some give like $500 and then $500 at the end, or I just want to make sure that it's clear when they get their money awarded to them.
yeah, is it
It didn't say there that I can see.
reimbursed?
Yeah.
Or is it upfront?
Yeah.
I think it was upfront and grant.
I
award.
thought it was upfront. They were
yeah,
gonna get
I
it and
do
they had
not
to do
remember
it.
exactly what Lisette had confirmed, but if that is what she had confirmed, then I just don't remember.
Yeah,
I think we're gonna check on this one because I don't remember how Arts does theirs, if they are able to award it upfront or not. I just know that a lot of times when we do this kind of thing, we have to do a reimbursement rather than a upfront.
Yeah,
But
well, and see if you can or not, because some of these are gonna be really small organizations that might not have $1,000 to spend out of pocket and then get reimbursed.
And do we know how long it would take for them to get reimbursed? Because that might be important to share up front.
yeah, I'm not sure if we give a normal amount of business days or anything, but I can check that and include that as well. So information on if they get paid up front, and then how long it would take to get reimbursed if it's a reimbursement.
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause we had that, we had discussed that preference, that they would get the money up front,
mhm.
preferred option, but I agree, we should have some transparency to the process regardless.
hopefully we've done our due diligence and the projects are legit and
Yeah,
they're not gonna run off.
yeah. Well, we will probably be able to tell just by how well they write them.
True.
I mean, like, what happens, yeah, if they,
Take the money and run.
well, yeah, I mean, like, what if they like don't come back to
Mm,
present to us, if that's part of the requirements?
True, then what's the punitive, there's no punitive action there, yeah,
But we've got their name and number.
we do. And we're really good at going throughout the city and
Each of
finding
us
people.
could call them. And there's an address, so.
For the last line,
Question
we have a question. Should we add your
Jessica's
email?
got a question.
from a concern of a previous potential grant with a local group or groups that had or maybe not Lori and Randy, I think you guys might remember. I can't remember who it was specifically, but there was concern about.
Sorry, Jessica, you're cutting out a little bit, so it's hard to understand. Could you try repeating that again?
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, let me try this. Is this clearer?
Yes.
Okay. I was just recalling last year when there was some concern about local groups and, like, you know, in the past their integrity with things, and so I wondered what measures were going to be put in for this round of applications for this.
Well, I guess that's kind of up to us when we receive the applications. If any of us know of vibes around particular organizations or people. I don't know if there's a formal way of like documenting that.
Well,
Will we know the people's organization and the person who's doing it? A lot of places they cover that up. You don't see the name of the organization or the person who wrote it.
I think we
well,
will.
this has to.
Yeah, I think we will see we'll see the full after, you know,
We'll review the application, right? We'll
Yeah.
see the details and information. You can decide
No.
internally.
after Ethan and company, you know, screen them for like basic
The minimum
requirements, minimum requirements. We're gonna see the whole thing,
Exactly.
Yeah,
person and organization, so.
but we can also do things like search for them online, see if they have a website. Should we add, if you have a website, please put it here?
I don't know.
So I think, you know, when we give out grants to nonprofits and schools and that stuff, we ask for either their 501c3 letter or we ask for a W-9 up front. And for all checks that we cut, we ask for a W-9. And if we're going to cut checks up front, then that might as well make sense to ask them to provide that as a part of their application. And if they don't have that, either one of those things, then the credibility of that organization, in my opinion, would be pretty questionable.
Well, what is it, the W-9?
You can just download that and fill it out.
Yeah, well, it has both your you can put your social security number on it or your EIN. So that doesn't push out people who don't have a 501c3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we want to make sure that that's
And,
not a
and,
requirement.
and that's really what they need in order to pay the person, because you're gonna have to
Right.
identify
You're
them
not-
one way or the other.
Yeah.
So that should be required as part of it. It's probably easier to get it rather than, well, I don't know, chasing one down. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, it just comes back to the question: do we want to pay them ahead of time, or do we want to pay them after the fact? And I think about us, and they go through all this, and we grant them the award, and then they'll after the fact, like, oh, I can't produce that document, and then it creates this weird, really awkward situation between us and that organization to say, I know we awarded that to you, but now we have to withdraw our offer. So, and just my opinion, it seems like we address that up front, so we know if they qualify in some way.
Probably true.
Yeah, it's a hard push and pull because we wanted to try to make this available to very small organizations and individuals that might otherwise not be eligible for the larger awards.
Right.
So, but then they also wouldn't have those kind of infrastructure or
Right.
institutional
Yeah.
supports.
Well, but I've filled out W-9s before
Yeah,
for organizations that I'm the only one.
Right, yeah.
And it's just my social.
Yeah,
Is all it
exactly.
is.
And so
And
maybe, maybe the solution there then is say you're you're passionate about trees and you have this cool idea about trees that you want to do. Maybe you approach an organization like ICT Trees to be your sponsor for this, and they slap their name on this, and you can use their organization, their 501c3, to help facilitate this cool idea that maybe some do-gooder would have. And we've seen that done a lot when organizations come asking for donations. And that's called a financial sponsor, is what that's called.
That's always for lots of money is what I've seen. And when we discussed this, I think we were very specific that we wanted all citizens of Wichita to be able to apply for this. They didn't have to be a 501c3. And if you don't have to be a 501c3, you don't have to go contract with somebody to have them oversee what you're doing.
Would it be possible to simply create like 2 different applications and say that one application is for like existing organizations of like a certain size, and the other application is for like one person, or like, I mean, I don't know how we would define it, but like maybe we could have like a form for, hey, you and 2 of your friends have an idea, here's the form you fill out, whereas you represent a scout troop, you represent a church, you represent, a business, a small business, here's the form you fill out. I mean, I don't know, would that multiply the problems that we're trying to reduce?
I think it would, because what he was saying, that it goes into a software system. And if they're gonna go into a software system, I bet it doesn't like 2 different
All right,
applications for the
fair
same
enough.
thing.
No, that's legit.
Yeah.
I
was just
gotta be
wondering.
geeky, come on.
I was just wondering.
I think, I think just, and I hear the group loud and clear that we want this to be easy. We want citizens who are well-intended to have access to this and utilize these dollars. And I agree with that. I think it's a great point. I think when we these checks and balances are up for a reason. I just highlight the fact that there would be risk involved that if we say, oh yeah, we'll give you a check, we don't really know you from Adam, but here's $1,000. And so there's this real risk there. And maybe the, as I try to get to a good place with all this, and for me just personally, maybe it is a reimbursement type process where, okay, you believe in this and you really believe in this, and then you go spend up to $1,000 and we will reimburse you once it's done. But without another kind of check and balance in place, I just worry that there is an opportunity for either people not to follow through or for abuse.
And I do think that they wouldn't have to spend all $1,000 to start getting reimbursed. It could be done in smaller chunks than that.
Okay.
So on that front, even if you just have the first $100, I think you could get reimbursed fairly quickly still on that.
That makes sense. I would hate to see them work 6 months to get their $1,000. If you had a $200 expense, you can ask the city to reimburse that. I'm cool with that. So Ethan, if that doesn't say anything, does it say anything about the SID board cannot apply?
Oh.
Because,
You
I
need
have,
to do that, yeah.
I have some things I would like to apply for. And it doesn't say nobody from SIB, and it should say nobody from SIB.
Did we
Well, this
discuss
is an
this last time?
application,
That
so
if you were
did.
applying, that
Yeah.
you just would,
it couldn't be
you
us.
just couldn't review your own application. Yeah, that you'd step back due to conflict of interest and you wouldn't review your own you wouldn't
Right.
score your own application.
I just saw something that said who's not eligible.
That's employees
it's-
of the city of
What's
Wichita.
Employees of the city, that's
Yeah,
it.
and that's not us,
But
that's
no,
just
look at
Ethan.
us. I'm kind of surprised.
Just the employees of the city of Wichita,
Where
or
was that? I just
we
saw
are-
it.
It's at the very end.
we are government officials, so if that's.
Oh, request not eligible.
Oh, there it
I
is.
didn't see it.
Full-time basis.
Oh.
So if you're a
Oh, you-
lifeguard,
So you just can't work full-time for the city.
yeah.
So surely like for a scenario like that should make like exclude her from the review. I'm just-
So in just terms of appearances, I don't think any of you should submit an application, and I can add that. I think that's an oversight on my part that I didn't add that. SID board members cannot apply. And I would recommend that if you're involved with organizations like serving on the board or volunteering consistently with them and they apply, it would probably be best to recuse yourself from scoring that application. Just to avoid any conflicts of interest.
Should we exclude all the boards now? As we have like representative from different boards like transit and others. I'm just brainstorming with you, you know.
Oh,
if we have
yeah.
At this point.
Any appointee, no, that's probably too broad of a brush, I think.
See, question, because a lot of us are all in the same group, same circles for the same goal, so that would be interesting.
Done. Okay.
If someone has a question, how to reach out to you, Ethan? Is there like a something here, like phone number or email? Maybe we.
Oh,
go to
yeah,
your
yeah.
inbox if you-
I don't know if it's,
I think
where
it's
it's
like-
I don't know, there was an email at the top, which,
there wasn't one at the top. I want to say
at the end.
right here.
Oh, God, very good.
Okay.
The other part I definitely want to discuss was the dates. These are the dates I think would be fitting the timeline that you all had talked about, but I wanted to confirm that.
Yeah, I think that matches after the holiday break.
So we would have to review the applications at our next, our February meeting. Is that enough time? I mean, do we need to plan on having a longer session?
A public building that can be open longer than 8 p.m.
It wouldn't be our February meeting, it would be our January meeting.
Well, if it's closing on Thursday,
Oh,
February
right,
12th.
okay. And then that would be a closed meeting.
Yes.
We would have
We need
to,
to call an ad hoc meeting to review those.
I think we considered that possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just have to, I think, Lizette just said she'd just have to send a media notice or whatever, something, if, you know, we're doing an ad hoc meeting.
And yeah, it could be at a different location if you still wanted to follow like a 6 or 6:15 p.m. start time and then go until you're finished. That way you wouldn't get kicked out by the library here.
I mean, we're assuming that there'll be, you know, enough applications that it'll take us a while, and there may be.
Mhm.
We don't know, that we haven't tried anything like this before. I think that we should, you know, be aware that, you know, a possible course of option would be if, you know, if applications close on February 12th and we meet in February to look at the applications and we have 4 that we might want to say, you want to know what, we can just reopen this.
Yeah.
And leave it open for another 2 months. I mean, I think it's fair, to do it like this, because we don't know what the response may be. The response, you know, may be enough that we'll have some hard decisions to make, or the response may be low enough that we feel like, okay, we obviously need to advertise this some more and give more people time to find out about it and, you know, apply for it. I'm not saying that we need to, you know, write that down right now. I just think that we should note that, you know, this is the sort of thing that if necessary, we could always extend it.
Yeah, that's true.
Unless there is in fact some kind of city rule that would require us to move on this money that we have available to us.
Not that I know.
Okay, well then, good. I just wanted to throw that out there because we just don't know, you know. I you know, if we get to February and we just have a tiny number of applications, I don't think that we should assume like, oh, I guess the micro grants were a bad idea. Maybe we just need to give them more time.
Agree with that.
When can we talk to people or announce it? Or I know the documenters, that was their top line on their report last month was the sustainability board is giving micro grants, so it isn't a secret.
Yeah, and as we're discussing it again today, and I've kind of shown the applications.
It's a
Yeah.
public
So
meeting.
People are gonna
so,
know,
Yeah.
so you feel free to talk about it.
Okay,
It's public.
Obviously, it won't be open until the 1st of January, but
Because
they can
I-
prepare
we should
applications.
even do a newsletter.
Yeah, yeah, you
Talked
should.
about starting to do like promotion of this in
Right,
December.
I thought you
right?
did.
Yeah.
Right, like mid-December, start
Mhm.
at least getting it out there so that people
Mhm.
are aware. Get it to the news, get it to the media or something so that people know. Then we could get thousands and thousands. Sure.
One of the food influencers that post about it.
So is the intention to have it only on the webpage for sustainability vision board or maybe like other social platforms like LinkedIn does? Or marketing or not for you?
I mean, you could share the link, once it's up,
Well, as a
wherever,
city.
but as the city, I'll have to talk to communications about it and kind of see what they want to do.
It would be
But,
great if you have it on all of your platforms. This is can help.
but yeah, in the end, I don't get to decide that one, but I can let them know
Yeah,
that
I
that's the
appreciate that.
recommendation of the board. If y'all are interested in having it out there like that.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, if you want to do any of your own advertising newsletter, definitely I encourage that. Just so, yeah, you can get as much participation as you
Just
can.
don't, just don't let them talk to you about their project.
Yes, yeah, don't start lobbying, have them start lobbying to you, because then
Yeah.
they would be ineligible.
Okay, do we have to move? Do we have to have a motion to approve the application like we did the rubric?
Yeah, that's up to you all if you want to make a motion or not.
What do you think,
I
Eber?
think we probably-
I'm happy to
I
do
think
it.
probably
you
should.
should.
Okay, I move that the application for the micro grants be approved as
Amended.
amended.
Second,
Thank you, guys. Should we get like inputs from the public?
Yeah, we could do, yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to open it up for public comment, but you will need to take a vote
Yeah.
as well.
Yes.
Did you have people say aye?
Yes, I didn't see that.
We didn't vote yet, but
We
we have to
didn't
have
vote.
public comment before we vote.
In the second
Yeah, we
round.
should do a public comment before we vote,
Right, yeah, yeah.
That's our
Correct,
point.
yeah, that's right.
No,
You got me, Ibrahim.
Yep.
We don't have anybody
we have
there.
one here.
No, they're the documenter. They can't comment.
Mhm.
Just like that.
They are here to document, not to
So we still
participate.
have these two valid motions,
Yep.
So for this in favor of approving the meeting, may I say aye? Sorry,
Aye.
for approving this micro grant, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anyone against that? Going once, twice, 3 times, so as a board members, we are approving this new change for the micro grant. So yeah, the last item we have it is, do you have something prepared for this one? It's like a 2025 wrap up, so I would like to say thank you for everyone, for your time, for your efforts. We sacrifice times, away from the family, away from our personal commitments, to come here, serve the city, so thank you so much. And I believe, just recall what we have done in 2025. Our main focus for 2025 was mainly about the water, right? And as a response to that, we drafted together like this proposal to the city about the gray water, right? Decentralized concept. We got some feedback, but we did our best, right? And after that, we did highlight that in one of our scopes within the micro grants, encouraging people to submit ideas or applications within the scope of the water, and also for the waste management. We hosted like very, very like helpful people to help the city pitch different ideas, So I would like to take some comments from you, and I would like to discuss with you what would be our future focus areas in 2026. Should we stick to the water waste management? So we can just open discussion, there is no any agenda items. What we are learning from 2025, what would not see again, what should we see or see not, whatever,
I have a question. I don't know, Ethan, how much information you have on like the progress we allocated the $40,000 to the 4 different areas. I was just wondering if like air quality sensors, if there was like a, just update with some of those paths, just so we could hear.
Oh, that's a great,
Um,
great thing.
So the air quality monitors in particular have not been ordered yet. Lisette is gonna handle those when she's back. So those will start in January. It won't take very long to order and get them delivered, but she was kind of frantically preparing to go on leave.
She's kind of busy, yeah.
Yeah. But she'll be back in January, so I think it will resume then, and most of that work will happen then for air quality. For food waste reduction with Sedgwick County, we were still waiting to hear back from the county on permissions to enter some of the schools to do some of the measurements on how much food is currently being trashed, and then kind of step in with those fridges to help reduce that number as part of that pilot program with USD 259. So I haven't heard an update on that one recently, but
Can
they
you
were
contact
working-
them and ask?
They've been waiting on USD 259, so we're, we're 2 steps
So
away. but,
remind them to contact USD 59 and ask?
I can again, it's, we'll see if the answer is different. But
So maybe 259 is a holdup.
that seems like it's just permissions. We've had some schools that are interested, but the person in charge of the lunchrooms for the district has not yet given the go-ahead on that. We do have the community garden composters available. I don't think we haven't posted the application yet on the website, but we have the application ready. I have a copy here, and I have copies I can get to you. We've adjusted it a little bit, so we've got 10 of the rotational composters, and there's pictures that'll go with the application, so you can kind of see what they look before you sign up. But these are just being given away to community gardens specifically. We did have one group take us up on that offer already. I don't remember which school it is now, but I want to say it was College Hill area maybe. And then we've got the rotational ones, and we've got the other outdoor version, which is kind of like a little mini fence. It's better for leaves, larger like plant waste that's gonna need to be stored somewhere in compost. We heard some feedback from Riverside Community Garden that version would be more helpful to some types of gardens. They're pretty set for composting at Riverside, but
Right, we are too.
they gave us some advice.
But composters came out of the 10,000 that was set aside for like promotional, or we had like promotional material.
Yeah, for promotion materials, so the brochures that I've got today and the new energy efficiency ones as well are part of that. There's been a few different ones, and there's still money remaining in that section. I think about $4,000 still that could be spent on promotional materials. Some of that will go towards advertising for micro grant applications. I think at least 1,000, if not 2.
What's
scheduled
scheduled for
for that.
the compost?
So I think those also were out of the food waste
Oh.
pot of money. Yeah. And then I think the last category is the micro grants, 10,000. So I think that's, yeah.
Thank you.
So some just generic frustrations of us city advisory boards, because I sit on 2, is that we're never really sure how much authority we have. I think it's near 0 sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of been a just like, how do we find our way when we're just, how effective can we collectively be? Are we just lip service? I don't know. It's hard to tell.
I actually think that the SIB has been more effective
I
in
would say so.
certain ways.
Yeah, I would
Than,
agree.
like, I mean, I was on the bicycle pedestrian advisory board for 9 years, and I think it is valuable that there were a group of people who could, collect complaints and concerns about bicycle and pedestrian issues from people that would come and talk to the board, that we, were able to present the city with lists of priorities. We took a look at all the projects that could be worked on and how we should use the money that's being appropriated and so forth. I mean, I think that's all very valuable. But one thing that this board has been able to do, and, you know, the bicycle pedestrian board in all the years that I was on it, and in the years that I have continued to attend as their representative, has still not have been allowed to do, is actually spend some of its own money. I mean, the SIB doesn't have a lot of money, but we actually have stuff that we can decide upon. That makes this board wholly different from anyone that I've ever served on before. So, I mean, you know, as long as there is the opportunity into the future for us to continue to, you know, apply for grants or beg the city council for some money or find some sort of way that we can do something direct. I mean, that's worlds ahead of anything that any of the other advisory boards do. It means that we're not just an advisory board.
Right.
We're actually a board that in a very small way is doing sustainability work as opposed to making recommendations or, you know, reviewing projects. I mean, the very fact that we're discussing ideas that we're pitching, you know, I mean, I don't think the bicycle pedestrian board ever said, you know what, we ought to just like change the bike map and, you know, let's just redraw a new one. No, there was one that had been made, and a lot of the people on the board were involved in that, but once it was made, it was like, okay, so let's see if we can find, if, you know, let's tell the city council that they ought to spend some money here and they ought to spend some money here. You know, we're actually proposing new ideas. So, I mean, I mean, that's not to say that there aren't things to improve or things to change, but, I mean, I know that when I first got involved with the board, you know, there was a big fight over the grant that actually led to Ethan being hired, and,
It was a big fight.
it was a big fight, and there were people that used to attend who stopped attending because it was like, oh man, it's like every other board. And I can remember sitting in here and thinking, we never get to discuss anything like this on the bicycle pedestrian board. I mean, this is like actual money that we're talking about here.
Exactly.
They never actually gave the bicycle pedestrian board any actual money.
Oh, God,
Yeah.
that's
So-
awful.
Most boards don't have funds.
They don't.
Yeah. We fortunately got that.
Yeah, so we're special. And let's not do anything to, you know,
Mess that up.
To mess it up.
jeopardize that,
Right.
but also let's, you know, let's continue to make use of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good.
Well,
point.
Especially since we're not ever gonna get any more.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well,
I do.
Oh,
You think
Not
so?
now, not now.
I don't think so.
Not now, we won't.
Well, you know, Russell, I had given a presentation about Civ at our District 5, and I've also given it to two other.
I was there when you
Yeah,
gave it. and
that's why
just-
I said something.
Yeah.
And I've given it to two other organizations, and pretty much the feedback is, you're doing what? And the city does this? I mean, the one guy raised his hand and said, I didn't know the city gave out coupons to go dump trash.
Yeah, bulky waste.
And didn't know, let's see, there was several things, this guys that, I said, well, the city, the rebates for the water, the
Yeah.
toilets and things. And he says, I've never heard about one of these. And, you know, I think there's room for us to talk up the city, what they have done. I mean, it hasn't been us. But I think the idea that we have all electric buses is very cool. And I don't know that a lot of cities this size have all electric buses. I don't know, but I think it's certainly something to brag on with the city of Wichita.
Mhm.
Yeah, our queue line is completely electric.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
some of our regular buses are.
Do you think that we could, just a question, do you think we could do more advocacy, not only of like what we're doing, but just
I think,
The whole
yeah,
city,
I think
like,
we
us as a
could
group.
be, you know, better advocates for what the city has done sustainability, because when they brought this here, it was really like, you guys aren't doing anything about sustainability, and they were, so they finally said, okay, we're gonna do this, and this is how we're gonna do it, and gave them some money, and
Like every time I've explained what the water center is to somebody, they've been like, that is so cool. And I had no idea it existed.
Right, right.
So, yeah,
Yeah, nobody knows it's there.
I mean, that's, 2026
I think,
plans.
I think, yeah, for 2026 plan, just that idea of advocacy or thinking about that. Since there is so much the city is doing, to your point, I think it's great to bring up. How can we support some of that work instead of trying to also do our own? I think we can do some of our
Well,
own things, but
I
we can also.
personally like that. I mean, that's kind of when I was writing my newsletter, I was almost always went to what the city was doing first. And because there's been a lot of good things, I mean, with the water, getting money for the, rebates for the water, and we can say about the compost, and,
The electric energy audit on the lift station pumps.
oh, there you go.
That was just like
Yeah.
total geek infrastructure, you know?
Well, and the tires being recycled, they
Yeah.
have, tires that, day that individuals can go dump tires for free. I mean, those are big deals.
They are. And even though not a lot of people know about them, the fact that we're engaged with this stuff is one of the best ways people can know about it. I mean, I feel like the best way that people can actually become aware of what's going on in the community around them is for them to, get involved in some tiny edge of it. And just by being involved in some tiny edge of it, you start encountering people and you start realizing other things that's going on. That's why I think these micro grants have the potential to not only do some good, but also to introduce a lot of people to, oh, this is something that the city of Wichita is doing. That's why I actually think that there is at least decent chance that we might be able to get additional funding that we can use in that way, because if these micro grants turn out well, then there can be people that will show up at district advisory boards and say, we did this, or even if they don't show up, we can show up and
Tell the
say,
story.
these folks that live in the district, they did this with this money, they did this with this money, and this is the way people become aware of it. Our educational outreaches matter, but also there's just gonna be a lot of education when somebody gets, $600 to, go and do something at their church or in their neighborhood. It's like, oh, hey, did you know? Somebody notices something that goes up on, a park stand, and somebody tells them, oh yeah, that was the, Sustainability Advisory Board. And all of a sudden people say, oh, there's a Sustainability Advisory Board. These things can build up.
I really like that, Russell, and I mean, that's what you said, like telling the story to that advocacy, like, and whether it's leveraging social media or like as other organizations, how can we maybe get some of those stories out where, to Russell's point even earlier, we've actually done stuff with money and implemented some change. And, whether it's the air quality monitors, the food sustainability, as some of these things get realized, let's tell that story and what that impact was. We had 2026 to do that.
There's a lot of neat stories, and I just, haven't had time with my newsletter to go and do stories. And there's a lot of nonprofits who are very dedicated to sustainability, and people don't know. They don't know what the city's doing.
Maybe something to focus on in 2026 in terms of that communication piece is just us going and finding these like existing civic groups and organizations, church basement meetings, this type of stuff that aren't necessarily sustainability focused because they're tapped in. But the people that aren't tapped into that, going and offering to tell the story of what is our city already doing?
Yeah.
And do you have different ideas on moving forward?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're all busy, but like we could find one time a month to go to Lions Club or, you know, something like that.
I'd be okay with that.
Right, yeah,
I'd be willing.
you
Or
know,
can they have representatives come here?
right, yeah, just to sit in, yeah, invite,
Exactly, yeah.
special invite, come to a meeting and.
So it looks like we are touching the same point, it's mainly about the outreach, right? Through the micro grants or the education component, or, and I
Well,
believe.
We got some good bragging rights, you know, having these mini grants in the refrigerator for excess food is, I mean, that's pretty cool.
You know, to touch on something somebody said a few thoughts ago, but it's how do we be a better partner with the city? And you know, something that in my department internally we've been challenged to do is how do we be a preferred partner? And I would ask this group the same thing. How do we be a preferred partner to the city who's doing good stuff in the world in the work of sustainability? You know, they have the water rebates. They're talking about water reuse. During the drought, there was huge conversations happening in our community. And as I kind of just be candid with you, my peers, we were kind of left out of those. And I think I feel pretty strongly that we should work on being a preferred partner to support the city on those because they have huge, I mean, they have staff time dedicated to this, they have financial time dedicated to this, and we can be an asset to those groups on activities that the city is already doing. And it's an opportunity for this board to lead and improve that relationship uh, with activities that the city of Wichita is already doing. Because
I think.
I would see as an opportunity to improve.
I was just gonna say, I think a lot of that's already written in our job description because I had to read our jobs description to do a talk. It is like, we're supposed to be doing all these things? Oh my heavens. So, but yeah, it was like all city departments or was encouraged to, you know, consult SIP.
Yeah, and the fact that, you know, James mentioned the water reuse, I mean, we found out about that after it was presented to city council.
Correct.
And that's backwards.
Mm-hmm.
We should have known about that ahead of time.
Yeah, I would say the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, James, that's a really great point. I think number one, building that partnership with the city, but I think also building that preferred partnership with other organizations, like we're saying, and maybe we can help serve as that conduit between, you know, what groups in the community are wanting to do and what the city is also working on, and maybe we can help bridge some of that gap, be that partner.
Yeah, so what I heard, yeah, I mean, just what I heard is that there's an opportunity to improve the relationship. And so I think as we talk about focus areas of this group, there's an opportunity there. And it sounded like we were in consensus a little bit. I'm not saying we got to put it in writing, but I think we all saw it and felt it.
Any other questions or any feedback? But it looks like we need money next year, right? To get more micro grants in the pipeline.
That would be great if we
And
could get
this
more
is
money.
will give us like a good,
That's why they hired Ethan. He's supposed to be writing grants for us.
oh,
There's no
okay.
grants out there.
Not now.
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
Well, we're not gonna meet for like, you know,
2 months.
2 months, and so you're gonna have so much more grant writing time. So I'm sure they're gonna start showing up, because that's the way these things go.
It's been a much smaller part of my job since the new administration took over and followed all of them. Right. There was one that we had city approval to apply for, the Protect grant to do some flood prevention work. Program has never been reopened.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Flood prevention needs that.
Well, we just keep trying.
Yeah.
You know.
And there could be a fairy godmother business, you know, say, drop money on us. I mean, I can be hopeful.
That's true, you know.
I mean, we won't say no.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, yeah, like energy production companies.
Well,
Possibly PR here or
you
there,
know,
you know.
as, you know, as James was pointing out, I mean, the city does stuff and, you know, who's to say that, you know, something might come along in terms
Mhm.
of, you know, like maybe you know, a renewed push to, you know, try to deal with, you know, alternative energy sources in order to deal with rising electricity prices, or, I mean, we just don't know, you know, what the future may hold.
Yeah.
And so we just need to be attentive to that and, you know, look in ways to be a good partner. And part of being a good partner is doing the actual advisory part of an advisory board, which is keeping our eye out for things and, you know, making sure the city is aware of things, you know, being a voice for stuff that Lizeth and Ethan are able to find in terms of refining it and then sending it back to the city council. I mean, you know, you don't know.
And sometimes it's just as simple as saying, hey, I see that you want to do this. What can we do to help? You know, I think that's all we need to do to start that conversation.
Are we aware of any sustainability priorities the city is thinking about into 2026 currently?
We're looking at you, Ethan.
I would say water reuse is gonna continue to be a priority for public works and utilities, especially. I think you're gonna see more communications coming soon on that front. I would check in with your council members, that you're appointed from as well, seeing kind of what their priorities might be. I'm not thinking of any other ones off the top of my head. The 29th and Grove agreement was just signed at the last council meeting, so.
Did they sign it? I thought they couldn't get to it.
No, they did end up getting to it. Gary had to stay and present on it.
Okay.
But I'm not thinking of any other ones off the top of my head. You mentioned alternative energy, Russell. I haven't heard any more updates on that front as terms of solar regulations. I believe the city council was still speaking with the county commission and going back and forth on what
Well,
that
the
would look like.
moratorium has ended.
Right, and yeah, there may be interest from groups still in putting solar in the county, but I haven't heard any further developments yet.
Well, I've heard that there might be some solar possibly put into our area of influence, which was the whole county's thing, was that we couldn't take any city's area of influence. But we have this whole area of influence that we might be able to take advantage of to put in some solar. One of the council members has been telling me this for some time. And I don't have any details yet, but I'm still talking to them, so. If I find anything out, I can let y'all know. In January.
I just think, yeah, and as we get into January, I'm just thinking to James' point around building that partnership with the city, I think our priorities at any given time should be fairly consistent with what the city's priorities are.
Well, right now, they've decreased the mill levy.
Also, maybe,
So
you know,
there's not a lot of extra money out.
maybe going
there.
along with that vibe, sustainability means cost savings. And so if we can find a way to make sustainability a cost savings, that would vibe with the current vibe.
Well, kind of like the whole
Yeah.
LED thing, which I'm assuming has been done. Now, all the LEDs
LED
are in,
streetlights, yeah.
Now,
right?
that's what it
Yeah.
said on the website.
Yeah. So that should be a cost savings.
Yeah.
It's not city related, but I did want to draw attention, Black Hills Energy, gave away about 60 trees, to the Wichita area. We had 60 free trees allotted. We worked with the Arbor Day Foundation. We had some money left over from our foundation. We have about 6 or 7 free trees left. So to the extent anybody on this committee wants a free tree, I would encourage you. I need help getting rid of 6 more trees. So please, everybody.
This is actually a bleg then.
Ethan, check me, make sure I'm not violating anything here, but it is available to all of our people. So go check that out.
For good ICT trees.
Yeah, we worked with them. They reached out to us. We're gonna keep on working with them, but this was done through the Arbor Day Foundation. We've been working with them for about 12 years or so now on energy saving trees, is what we call it. But a well-placed tree can do wonders for energy savings in a variety of different ways. Is the reason we do this. This seems like the kind of group that would appreciate a free tree. So please go get one.
Oh, great.
Thanks. So are we good for this wrap up for 2025?
So,
Yeah, thank you so much. It looks like water is still one of the active elements that will carry over with us from 2025 to 2026. Energy saving, waste reduction. We have to hear back from this city about their goals for 2026. And it's not sure, like for our meeting minutes and whatever we discuss and wrap over here, who are the receivers?
So I believe that now all advisory board minutes go to the city council members. I think they requested again that they all be sent out. I think they were already sent out in one way, but they wanted them directly. They're also posted online, and are available, as well as the recording, are on the city webpage.
It's the sustainability webpage, but all of the minutes of every meeting, of everything, it's all on the same page.
Okay, thanks. We don't have public comments. We are going to end this meeting. And thank you so much, everyone. And I will see you 2026.
So do we know when the meeting in 2026 is?
Should be the same
Do
schedule.
we already, do we have a 2026 schedule yet?
So I haven't reserved the rooms yet, but
We're just gonna keep with,
third Wednesday.
the only thing you all would have had to change if you wanted to meet in November, we would have had to change
No,
that,
I mean,
but
we are-
otherwise you stick to the same fourth Wednesday schedule.
Okay, so it would be, I don't know, what is it? It's gonna be,
Oh,
That
here,
would
hold on, I
be-
think I might have, yeah, there you go. I'm gonna say January 28th.
28th. Yeah.
January 28th. Okay. I am gonna be gone.
No.
God.
Didn't know there were limitations.
I do have a general question
Yeah,
as well on that, just,
8 years.
is there on members of this board, is there like an